Hi, I'm Nancy from Jungle Pixie Belize, and today I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I make my handcrafted rosewood burl carvings. You know, many people have asked me through the years how I create these things, and I usually tell them I use mostly my fingernails and harsh language, but I do use some tools too. About my resources, my rosewood burl is recovered from the scraps of old rosewood millings, reclaimed from the Belizean rainforest. It's a legacy that was left behind by loggers almost a century ago, so the use of these small cutoffs is environmentally friendly and involves no deforestation. You know, these rosewood creations represent the heavenly afterlife of a tree. It's a second chance to live on as art. It's a breathtaking reincarnation of natural beauty. I like to think that it's what every tree wants to be after it dies. So when I get my rosewood, the first thing I do is cut it into thin sections. And then I sand it to a 220 grit to make it smooth and workable. You'll see here that rosewood burl patterns are really dramatic and magical. They almost look like the mysterious surface of an uninhabited planet. This richly grained figured heartwood might stand alone, or you may get some that has some light colored sapwood on the side, and this is called bicolor burl. These patterns that you see actually have names. Look at the dark stripe in this one. But you'll see patterns that remind you of bird's eye, or blister, curl, dimple, fiddleback, flame, or spalting. All of those patterns have these names. So rosewood has been logged out all over the world. In fact, rosewood burl like this is so rare that even if you were to find a rosewood tree, it would only occur in maybe 1 out of 500. You would see this pattern. So that makes rosewood burl a semi-precious material, and to own it, really, is a planetary legacy. So once I've created my blanks like this, I draw the pattern that I want, and then I cut it on the bandsaw, like this, very carefully. I still have all my fingers. Here's a piece I've been working on lately. You'll see the inside is still pretty rough. Cutting the outline is really fairly easy most of the time, but the internal part of the design is the real challenge. So for this part, I first drill holes with my drill bits, and then I use various router bits from my Dremel tool here, which right now it's got a sanding disc on it. But I use little bits like this, different ends on them, different shapes. Some of them are very fine points. And then I coax out the rest of the pattern. I have to work at it like this and cut into these places until I get the design that I want. I like doing symbols. I do mostly medieval type stuff, Renaissance, Viking, pagan, Celtic, Egyptian, African, Aboriginal. I'm also a big Game of Thrones fan. What you see here is an infinity symbol. This is pretty well universal. So when I have the inside roughed out, I use files as well. I use big files like this, round files, square files, and then I use a lot of little tiny needle files like this. And they come in different shapes. There's round and square and flat and angled and half round and triangle, and that's to get the inside clean and free of the striations. And then I actually pass sandpaper. I'll fold this up really small, and I'll be passing sandpaper and files through this to get all of these edges smooth. To get the outside done, this one doesn't have any design on the outside yet, but something like this. There's a lot of carving that goes into this. This is called the Eye of Horus. This is going to be really cool when it's done, the Egyptian symbol. And again, I use the bits for that, gougers, files, various blades. And then to sand the outside, sometimes I clamp my Dremel tool in the vise. So I'm working against it like this, and I'll work the piece, against it. But in the end, it all comes down to hand sanding. There's really no other way to be sure that the scratches are out. Once I work the wood up to about a 1500 wet, then I put it on the buffing wheel, which I may use this small buffing wheel in my Dremel, or I might work the wood against a larger buffing wheel. And when the piece is done, for example, it looks like this. This one is called the Sacred Tree of Life, or the Tree of Life. It's considered early Christian, Celtic, and also pagan. You can see the carved detail on the front of the wood, and on the back of this piece I decided to leave it plain because the figuring itself, it's hard to get the light just right, is so incredible. This piece I've called Sword of the Iron Throne. Again, I love Game of Thrones. But I wanted to show you the closure system on this. When I string a pendant onto a necklace, I use this very comfortable poly cord, and I hate the idea of having to depend on some little spring mechanism and worry about losing the piece. Also, I don't like the fact that you can only wear it at one length. So this is quite unique in that you slip it over your head big like this, then you pull the cords and get it to the desired length. Pull the beads around to exactly where you want it to be. So it can be worn like a choker, or it can be worn long down on your chest. Get the light over here. There we go. So there's another piece that I really like. This one I just finished recently. And this piece is cool because it shows off the bicolor in here. Very cool piece. Again, it's adjustable, and with this one I even got a piece of bicolor in the beads that goes with it. So that's how it's done. A lot of work, absolutely handmade, and you can find these carvings and other unique items in my shop at Jungle Pixie Belize, which is on Etsy.com. It's also on Facebook and on Pinterest. And come back for more videos here on YouTube, and thanks for joining me.